Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to the Radical Workplace. I'm here.
Hi, everyone.
I'm Shale Risman from Pace Technical, and I'm here with my co-host, Mary Ellen Duncan. Hey, Mary Ellen.
Hello. Hey. How's it
Hey,
going?
this has been a really exciting one for us, this upcoming episode, because we're speaking to Alison Grenier from Great Places to Work, Great Place to Work.
Yeah.
And she was, really, really great about talking to us about the importance and really the very basic part of employee engagement is developing trust. And at Great Place to Work, they have a trust model that involves, respect and credibility, fairness, and,
learned all about.
Camaraderie, pride, all of these things go together to create a great place to work, and they can point you in the right direction. And a lot of our listeners are really interested this year, certainly, to kind of, get on that list. And it becomes harder and harder every year to get on that list.
Every year.
Yeah. So I think you'll learn a lot from this, from Alison here and steering us in the right direction. So, no further ado, here's Alison Grenier and from the Great Place to Work. Hello, welcome, Alison from Great Place to Work. Happy to have you here.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
It's no problem. Listen, it is I'm really happy to have you here, actually, on several different levels. Pace, our company, has been on the list of great places to work, specifically for small businesses, for 6 years now. And it's been one of the biggest sources of pride, not only for myself as a co-owner of the company, but also for the staff, who are greatly invested in keeping us there. And it's, made us a very attractive place to work for people who are looking to have a solid foundation not only in technical skill, but also in culture and work satisfaction, which is a little harder to find. Maybe we could just start by you telling us what your function is there and how Great Place to Work got started.
Sure. We're actually, Great Place to Work is the world's largest people analytics firm. And so what we do in a nutshell is we help companies achieve better business results by focusing on the work experience for every employee. So we have 30 years of data, which shows a very clear and direct relationship between employee experience and business performance. And so you mentioned Pace was on the list, and that's a great source of pride. And so what we do is we help organizations improve their workplace culture by accessing the data they receive through our survey. And also we recognize the best. And as you mentioned, that employer branding piece has been really key for many of our clients, not only in attracting new employees and retaining them, but really building that internal brand, as you say, that employee pride. And so happy to hear. I'm very proud of Pace and your performance over the past few years. And I think you were like top 5 most recently.
We were, well, right? Thanks for rubbing it in, but we were 6. We almost made it to top 5.
Number 6 is amazing.
But
very competitive list.
We were very happy. Yeah. And you know what? That list has become more and more competitive as we have been, we've noticed this anyway, as we've been, trying to get on it. It gets harder and harder to get on that list.
Absolutely. And Shale, you asked if I could share a little bit of the history of how our organization was founded. And I do have a funny little story to share. So if you think about employee, sort of employer lists, there's like 1 million of them out there now. But Great Place to Work's list, the best workplaces in America, that was actually the very first of its kind. And the way it came about was our founder, a man named Robert Levering. He was a labor reporter working in San Francisco. And so he saw like the worst of corporate America.
Oh, wow.
And he went to his publisher one day and he said, I got a great idea for a book. I want to write a book about the worst workplaces in America. And the publisher said, great idea, but we don't have enough lawyers for that. Why don't we flip it around and you write a book about the best workplaces in America? And so that was the birth of our trust model, our methodology. And the way it came about was essentially by him interviewing thousands of employees in regular workplaces, thousands of leaders. And from there, he formulated our trust model, which is really the key factors determining what makes a great place to work. So I love telling that story because you can imagine how things would have gone differently if he published that book on the worst workplaces.
Well, yeah, it's probably an easier book to write and more exciting to write about the worst workplaces, more interesting for readers, I would imagine. But there's a great sense of positivity that comes with turning it around. And you know, like that, I think is the most important part of what the great place to work is it instigates enthusiasm and positivity within the workplace. We certainly notice the difference. That's undeniable. But that's a funny story. I didn't actually know that. I actually thought that the Great Place to Work organization was a Canadian only company until about a year ago. So
yeah, so we are the world's largest sort of employee analytics firm. So each year we run a survey, a global survey, which encompasses the views of 10 million employees, about 10,000 employers in almost 100 countries around the world now. I've been with the firm for 15 years, so I have really seen things grow. I've been with the firm in Canada, but also globally, like we're really getting traction all around the world. Our model that was founded by Robert Levering 30 years ago is still the heart of what we do today. Our methods have changed a little. You know, we've embraced technology and the way we interact with our clients, but that foundation of trust, which is really, it's all about human relationships. So everything we do is about human relationships. And what Robert found and what we continue to experience today is that trust is really the foundation for quality jobs and performance excellence. And so if you think of an employee, when an employee trusts their leader, they're going to give their best freely, right? They're not going to hold back. When a leader trusts their employee, that allows innovative ideas to bubble up from all levels of the company. And when employees trust each other, you have this sense of team or camaraderie, right? And so you can see how those three groups of relationships work together to create a workplace experience where people feel good going to work, on the subway or however they get to work, and they feel good coming home from work because they feel like they've made a contribution.
Right. Absolutely. And that's the basis of your trust model, correct? Like that's Absolutely. Essentially what it is.
Yeah.
And which fascinates me. So talk to me a little bit more about that model. I know how important trust is as a business leader. You can't function without it. It depends on, what level of trust you're willing to work with as a leader. And I find that a lot of my colleagues, specifically in IT, tend to kind of land somewhere in the middle, whereas they are, about as trusting of their employees as their skepticism and experience as business leaders will let them be. And
wow.
Well, but this is the issue, right? Is that suddenly, when you do that, you're leaving a whole space of distrust that basically makes you think that you have to deploy rules, extended rules and really off-putting boundaries and micromanagement situations for your employee base. This is what I found in my experience. And again, in my experience, when you can, it's hard to overcome that as a business leader, that kind of, I basically trust them, but I trust them up to here, because at the end of the day, they're really always out for themselves, because that's what people are. They need to be able to, make sure that their families are taken care of and they are taken care of. But once I could lift myself past that as a leader and go, yes, people are going to be people, But if we're going to create a workspace that has enthusiasm and loyalty and you know, a trajectory of success that the clients can then absorb, I have to get past that part of distrust as a leader. I have to say, yes, I know that you are going to make the best decisions for your family and for yourself ultimately, but I can certainly make you as comfortable as possible and as happy as possible in this situation, so that if you do decide that you're going to make a different decision and leave, I have done everything I possibly can.
Well, absolutely, Shale. And, you know, I just a couple points to play off of what you said. The first one is related to sort of people's personal tendencies to either trust or withhold trust. And in our experience, we work with companies in all industries, and there's a big difference between sort of relationships in a professional services firm or maybe a nice little not-for-profit versus like tech or manufacturing.
Correct.
And so what we found is that leaders all bring their personal bent into how they extend trust to their employees and how employees then in turn relate to them. But the one thing we try and tell our clients is that this is not fixed. Okay, so anyone, it doesn't matter if you're a hardcore, skeptical, glass half empty technical person that's always looking to critically assess everything, or if you're like a super trusty, touchy-feely person, everyone has the opportunity to inject or develop new habits that will actually build trust with your team. And so whether you're starting from this end of the spectrum or this end, what we do is we help organizations say, okay, let's look at what you're doing now and how could you like tweak that a little to start fostering trust with your team. So I think that's the first thing that we do, work with organizations in various industries where some have more work to do than others in terms of those personal interactions and extending trust. And then the second thing I was going to say is really related to how trust can build collectively. And so let's use PACE as an example. And so when you kind of first started on this journey, you were probably, you know, had committed executives, committed leadership, and then you brought everybody along on this journey with you. And once trust starts to build, it takes on its own momentum. It becomes the way you do things in the organization. So I don't know if that's something you've experienced over the last 5 years at PACE. It's on a life of its own.
It takes on a life of its own. That's exactly what it does. It gathers its own momentum. It actually sets its own, it actually becomes the goal setter. Rather than having, you know, obviously myself and my executive team, we will consistently be looking at our goals and our, you know, where we need to kind of steer the ship in the right direction. But at the end of the day, it's the enthusiasm and the ideas and the innovations that come from a happy environment where people are looking or have, you know, feel like they have and do have a vested interest in the company that steer those goals. They determine where they are because they are in the trenches with everybody. They know what needs to be done to take us to the next level. And I just find them, my team, so much more engaged now that we are, and we weren't always like this. Now that we are a great place to work and we concentrate on it regularly, the difference between the experience before and the experience now is profound. So yeah, the trust part of it is something that once it hits and once you free yourself as a leader and once your employees realize, hey, this guy isn't just out for himself. He really cares about what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, and he wants me to grow and he wants to train me and he wants to make sure that I'm happy and fulfilled in my job. Once people realize that, because it's such a rare thing to find, suddenly everything changes. Right? And that's what we found anyway.
Yeah, and your business results change too, because as an organization, the only way you're going to knock it out of the park is if you have everyone bringing their best to work. And the best way to get people to bring their best to work is for you to extend trust to them, for you to let them bring their ideas and their innovative ideas. So let's think about COVID. Like COVID is a perfect storm for innovation, agility, new ways of working. And so early on in the pandemic, we asked our clients that we were working with, sort of, what are you doing? How are you managing this? So within the first few months. And what really blew us away was that amongst the best workplaces, and I know this isn't typical of all companies because I've seen what other companies are doing, but certainly amongst the best workplaces, the leadership acted boldly, they communicated strongly. More importantly, they really flipped things around and started listening more than they ever have. And most importantly, they had to trust people. So even if that was hard for them, even if they were in their minds thinking, oh, no one's going to do any work working from home, right? They had no choice. And what did we find a year later, right? Like, so we did a follow-up survey a year later, and something like 75% of the companies were saying, oh yeah, this kind of move to hybrid work, this is sticking around.
Oh yeah.
And it's not to save money. It's redeploying bricks and mortar investments into employee wellness benefits, things like that.
That's exactly what we've been doing. It's funny that you say that because certainly at Pace, I have always been relatively old. I'm an old guy. So I've always been relatively old school about remote work. And I'm a very collaborative person. So, you know, in my mind is like, I need to be face-to-face with people. They need to be face-to-face with each other to share and to do all these things. But with the technical tools that are available now, and again, we were forced into this. So we had to find a way to make this work. And as a leader, I can say that I was pretty engaged with the team in general, but I had to be even more engaged. I had to make sure that I was talking to people one-on-one, to make sure that their mental health was where it needed to be and that their health in general and their families were okay. I had to sit in on like individual departmental meetings, not been in on a weekly basis, but then I started having to do that because I wanted to make sure that the right things were being discussed. And all I found was that people were more engaged over Teams and over Zoom than I ever imagined that they would be, and that things got done faster. And you know, even productivity, frankly, went up.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And when we went back to them and said, hey guys, you know, we're going to be going back to the office soon. The office is going to open up. And I went back and I'm like, I'm more than willing to do a hybrid, you know, two days in the office, 3 days at home, if that's what everybody wants. And you know, everybody was on board. Like literally everybody was on board. Some people work better, you know, when they're at the office because there's too many distractions at home. Some people work better at home. You know, by giving people that choice and giving people that leverage and ability to be able to accommodate their families if they need to, and be there when, you know, their parents, their aging parents need them, and, you know, being able to kind of figure out when they work rather than when we work. Our productivity went through the roof. I mean, the only thing I'm thinking of now is it's too bad for the landlords out there, because in the next 10 years, as leases are going up, everyone is shrinking the office at this point.
Yeah. Or changing their office structure to accommodate. And so a study I read recently on the return to the workplace said about a third of people want to go back. They miss the office, they want to go back.
Right.
And a third of the people never want to go back. If they like working in their jammies and they if you make me go back, I'm not coming.
That's right.
And then there's about a third that want some kind of flexibility, some kind of hybrid model. So for savvy employers, your only option is to integrate a hybrid model. right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to have some very dissatisfied. You're going to alienate one of those three groups, right?
People will leave. People will leave because there will be an opportunity at another company who is going to stick to a hybrid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe not only in your own city, across the country.
Yeah, we're seeing.
Right?
Listen, we're in tech, so we're seeing that too. We're seeing a lot of American companies who are struggling right now for resources. Going and coming to try and solicit workers in Canada because they can pay them the same amount in U.S. funds, but it's more money to people here, right? So, you know, we're seeing a lot of that opportunity as well. So the onus is on us as leaders to be able to continue to offer that. More than anything, the employees are in the driving position more than ever before.
Well, and because they have proven to you that they don't need to be in the office to get work done.
That's right.
Right? And you're all set up for it. So for me, it's going to be a really interesting year to see how things unfold with the best workplaces and with regular workplaces as well. I think there's going to be a lot of lessons learned. And certainly, I mean, we've identified, you know, some key ways that the pandemic actually changed Canadian workplaces for good.
For good.
Meaning for the positive and permanent.
Yeah.
Right?
And
so this hybrid work is an example. Focus on workplace mental wellness, whole person wellness. The pandemic has really helped to advance the inclusion movement.
Yeah.
Things like agility and innovation, and also companies sort of, you know, the way companies really stepped up to be community leaders in their communities, giving back to the community. I think that has allowed, you know, I think most companies have some kind of corporate social responsibility program, but a lot of them, it's just on the back burner. But with COVID, companies really had to step up and say, yeah, this is our job to take care of our communities as well. And so we saw a lot of great stuff there. And I really do believe, I am, speaking of sort of glass half empty people, I am more of a glass half full person myself, but I do definitely see, we're seeing evidence of some positive outcomes of the pandemic.
I can see that. And that was another question I was going to ask is, how do you see the remote part of this affecting the average workplace out there? The fact that they have all of a sudden now the organizations, the teams and the organizations are now going to be spread out, possibly globally. How do you foresee that affecting productivity, profitability, and general employee wellness?
So I think we are on a good, I think most great workplaces are already on a good and productive track with a focus on employee wellness and productivity. So I think those boxes are checked. I'll be honest, when we looked at the trust index results, sort of comparing pre-pandemic to post-pandemic, they actually went up a little, and as a benchmark. And that is because leaders, for the most part, if you already had developed trust with your team, you were able to really step up. Your employees trusted you. They would kind of follow you up the muddy hill, as it were, even whenever, but nobody knew what was going on. Companies that started off with lower levels of trust didn't have that luxury. But certainly amongst the high trust companies, we saw sort of a 2-point increase, 1 to 2 point increase in trust throughout the pandemic.
That's pretty significant, actually. 1 to 2 points. It
sure is. Yeah, it sure is. It's not a big number, but I think it's a very significant number. Obviously, there were variants by industry. So hospitality was really hard hit. Healthcare was under a lot of pressure. But for many industries, professional services, IT, we did see that slight lift in trust. So now the next telltale sign is going to be how leaders support the return to the workplace. So you've got that sort of little lift in trust. Don't ruin it by saying everyone do back in the office full-time September 1st, right? But at the same time, companies do have business realities. So if you need people in the office for certain things, you need people in the office. If you're in healthcare, people need to be there, right?
And we're the same way in our business. How are you? What is the stance that Great Place to Work is taking as far as back to work goes? Is there a profile that you have? Or okay.
So the party line, and our global CEO actually just released a really great paper or a little article on this called "Don't Do It." Like, don't force everybody back at the same time for a certain July 1st. You need to be flexible. The whole year has been about learning flexibility and accommodation. And so, and the fact that, people are getting immunized and the numbers or case counts are going down, we all kind of have PTSD a little bit, right? From this worldwide pandemic. So, we can't just flick a switch and it's over. And also, business leaders, I think, have a responsibility, an opportunity and a responsibility to really reflect on what they learned over the past year. So if you're the kind of leader that thinks, oh, I need to be on top of everybody all the time, but they've proven over the last year that tons of great work got done, people were able to take care of themselves and their families, then I think you as a leadership team have a responsibility to reflect on that and come up with a structure that's going to work for your people moving forward.
I'm Michael Sugrue, president of Pace Technical. For over 20 years, we've been the leader in managed and co-managed IT for businesses in the GTA. If you want a proactive, process-driven approach to IT, we can help. Our complete care service eliminates issues and gets businesses the most out of their IT investments. We provide help desk support for quick response when you have issues, proactive maintenance to keep systems running, enterprise-grade security to keep you safe, and IT strategy for better business decisions. Book a free 20-minute IT gauge at pacetechnical.com today.
Okay, it's not surprising to me that was the position that was going to be taken, and is that going to affect the way that the survey is put out this year?
No, so we're fully digital anyway with our survey. We do have the odd client that still requests paper surveys, but it's very, very rare. And so for sort of most wired employees, it's all done electronically anyway.
Yeah.
One area, I talk about some of the positive outcomes of what we've been through collectively this past year. I do think there's a little bit of a gap for camaraderie. So there was one statement that had the only statement that had a significant decrease was, this is a fun place to work. We celebrate special events as a team. So I think, we've learned how to be efficient. We've learned how to communicate. Maybe we haven't quite learned how to celebrate online. I mean, have you guys been on like one of those forced 1-hour Zoom calls early in the pandemic?
We have tried
They're
desperately
horrible.
to kind of do it. We tried to do a happy hour on Fridays at 5:00. We tried to, Mel can speak more to this. She's in charge of our social committee.
And I mean, with COVID, obviously, we had to get a little bit creative. We couldn't do most of the activities that we spend lots of money doing every year. Like we'd go watch a game or we'd go camping or do something really fun. But with the pandemic, we're kind of stuck online. People are having Zoom fatigue, but we figured it out. Like we have our weekly Thursday night game night, and that's still fun to us because, again, it's like an hour of non-work conversation where we could play games and just relax. And then as Shale said, there's like our Friday happy hour where it's an hour of you bring whatever you're drinking, drinker or non-drinker, and you just chillax for a full hour. Again, we leave work aside and we're just talking to each other one-on-one, catching up, and just having a good time. And that's how we've sort of connected.
But it's not the same as us going out to restaurants and kind of sitting together. And, it isn't. We can't make it, I think that's what Alison can certainly jump in. But I think that's what she's saying is that it's not the same. There's only so much socialization that you can do looking at a screen.
That's true.
Yeah.
But for people like me that are, I like to call myself an introvert, but people probably see me as the opposite. But I like it because you still can be behind a screen and then you can do it more often. So you don't have to be in person all the time. So people might prefer that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
yeah,
let's
so
say,
but like I say, we'll see. The companies I've been talking to, the ones that are actively sort of reassessing their office space, their brick and mortar, and there are a lot of companies doing that. They are thinking of a redesign so that the future physical office space is not like a whole bunch of rows of cubicles, but it's more collaborative spaces, and it's more celebration, social spaces. So when you do go into work, you know, you can kind of heads down and get your work done at home, but when you do go into the office, it's really expressly for the purpose of collaborating, talking to people, socializing. Right. So I've heard some neat stuff about, you know, what companies are, you know, we used to have this many square feet, it was all cubicles. Now, because we're hybrid, we only need half that many cubicles. So now we have a games room and a kitchen and a bar and, you know, different things like that. So I think that's going to be really exciting. Yeah. I have worked from home for 15 years and loved it, right? Because I'm based in BC and our head office is in Toronto. Right. So it wasn't really a big change for me, but I must say, not being able to visit clients, that's been tough, right? Because I would spend a lot of time visiting clients. Not being able to visit my colleagues has been tough. Yeah. And I think it's just one thing we still need to work on is how to really connect and how to really be close to what your colleagues are facing when in a totally virtual world.
Yeah, but I think that we can find that balance. Certainly when the pandemic, and now it's kind of easing up and the reality is kind of hitting us, is that we can now, you know, let's look 3 months down the road. And we have said that, you know, in September, it's funny that you had mentioned that don't give a hard date, and we haven't given a hard date. We were just after Labor Day, we are going to spend September getting ourselves into a place where we can now be in a hybrid. And we know there's going to be some bumps. We know there's going to be some challenges, but we can take our time and get through those as long as we can keep up our KPIs and, you know, ensure that everyone is doing what they absolutely need to do to keep our clients happy. We can also take our time to kind of build what this new world is going to look like.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where, you know, I think a lot of the challenges as a business leader are going to be for me and for my team. But again, I think the hybrid part of it is actually going to be easier after a while. It may take some getting used to, but certainly you're going to make more people happy by giving them work-life balance than you are going to make people unhappy, right? So I think it's a hard thing to kind of to guess at, but I'm pretty confident that that's the way it's going to go. So you're saying that you don't think that the way, not the manner in which you survey people, but the actual survey itself, and I believe that's done the end of the year, beginning of January. Is that, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So just in terms of our process, okay, we work with companies of all sizes, all industries. So we welcome registrations from any organization. If you already think you're a great place to work, that's awesome. If you think you have a lot of work to do, that's awesome too. That's the whole point of us partnering, okay? And so when a company decides they're ready to go for the Great Place to Work certification or try to start on that journey, all they need to do is register with us. They complete a short, very short culture brief, giving us some details about their company. And then we administer the employee survey. So all you need to do is give us your employee emails and demographics, if you like, and then we take care of administering the survey. So a couple reasons for that. Number one, having a third party administer your employee survey really puts employees' minds to rest when it comes to sort of the anonymity and confidentiality of their responses. So when we deploy the survey, we know who said what, but you will never know who said what. We never share that with clients. So it is really guaranteed anonymous for survey participants. So we administer the survey usually, Shale, you're probably thinking back a few years ago, we did have sort of some key survey periods. Now we survey companies any month of the year.
Oh, okay.
So, and you can get started in as little as 2, 3, 4 weeks. So if you decide you're ready, you want to survey, you register, we survey your employees, and depending on the results of that survey, you may become Great Place to Work certified. And so for a company to become Great Place to Work certified, they need to achieve a minimum of 65% positive. So when we average all of the statements on the trust index, they need to be 65% positive, and then you're Great Place to Work certified. Now, when employees respond and they make the certification threshold, then we'll communicate back to you, congratulations, you're certified. And then throughout the whole year, we publish a series of best workplaces lists. Right. So you guys were on the sort of the big list, which is our best workplaces in Canada. That's our national flagship list. That is published in April. But we also every 3 or 4 weeks publish different lists. So we do industry lists. So best workplaces in technology, manufacturing, and so on. We publish demographic lists. So best workplaces for millennials. Best workplaces for mental wellness, and so on. So the list goes on. So with that one survey and Great Place to Work certification, you have the opportunity to be recognized throughout the year.
And we have been, I believe we've been recognized. Well, I know we have on several of those lists, which you know is great for morale, 100%.
Yeah, I love it when it comes out like every few weeks and we get an email just saying, oh yeah, we've made it on the list for like wellness or giving back or for millennials or for Ontario. So it's nice to sort of celebrate something every few weeks. I love that.
Yeah, and so that's sort of the appeal of the employer branding piece. Mm-hmm. But to me, the most useful piece of the survey is when you when you complete the survey and you say, yes, you made the certification threshold, then you receive your results. So then you can dig into, okay, what did my employees say? What are my high statements, my low statements? What do their open-ended comments look like? And so the opportunity for learning and actioning on those results, that's what drives your culture forward. Yeah. So if you, if you have the branding, that part is good and it's good for morale and pride. But eventually, if employees don't see things changing at work based on their feedback, then it sort of goes the other way, right? So you really have a responsibility. If you're going to ask your employees what they think, then you have a responsibility to sort of take some action on that as well. And I mean, that's what I love doing, working with organizations to really try and get to those low-hanging fruits. What are the most important parts of what your employees said? You know, I always say, if you want to know what your employees think, just ask them. They'll tell you. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
Right? It's not rocket science. And so when employees are telling you, you know, one of the most common ones we have, they might have high levels of trust, but management shows appreciation for good work and extra effort. That's often a low statement. So, and they say, well, we have a thanking platform. Okay, what is it about the way you thank in your company? Because numbers don't lie, right? So you may have the best thanking programs in the world, but if nobody's using them in a sincere way that makes employees feel appreciated, then that program is not the right fit for your company. Yeah. And so that's what I like to do, is help uncover the gaps in workplace experience between what you're currently doing, what are those people practices and everyday behaviors you have in place, and how are employees experiencing them. So in other words, the gap between where employees are now in the culture you want to create, right?
Right.
And so that's where the analysis comes in, and that's where our expertise comes in, because we've literally seen thousands of companies over the years on these similar journeys with similar sticking points and similar challenges. And so then we can share what other companies have done to overcome that hurdle. But really, one of the really important things we say is having the people programs in place is important. but not as important as the behavior of your frontline leaders. And so, you might have RSP top up and 4 weeks vacation and great benefits. But if your immediate manager is a jerk, that's what you're thinking about when you're going to work each day.
It's probably the only thing you're thinking about.
Yeah. And so the other thing we do, so we work with companies on sort of evaluating from a strategic level, what does your people programming look like and how is that landing with your people? But on the other side, we also work on everyday behaviors anybody can incorporate. So for instance, if you're a leader that doesn't remember to say thank you, then we have little tips and tricks for making those reminders and developing those habits so that your employees feel appreciated.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, and these are all such good morsels, and it gets me so juiced up and ready to go in with the team and kind of make sure that, it fills me with enthusiasm as a leader. When we talk about engagement and the difference, the profound difference in performance and productivity that you see. And as a CEO of an IT company, and we belong to a peer group, a global peer group, and we meet, by phone or Zoom weekly, but we meet in person 4 times a year. And one of the major things that has come up certainly in this time is complaints about not being able to keep a good staff of people, that people, in IT are always moving to a different place. They'll go where the money is. They'll do this. They'll leave and go start their own thing or whatever it may be, is holding on to the resources that they have or finding good resources because there's so much opportunity for people out there. And they'll complain about engagement with their clients and how they can't, they're trying desperately to teach their staff and their teams about communication and how important it is to keep their clients updated and have the right information. And these struggles that people are having are just struggles that us, as a great place to work, we just simply do not have. We're not having trouble retaining good people. We're not having trouble communicating with our clients and making sure that our clients are happy because our staff is engaged. And our staff is completely on top of it. And when I go forward, it's very frustrating for me because I will stand up and go, all of these problems are solvable. You just have to engage your staff. That's it. You've all got these rules that you follow, and everyone's got to punch a clock, and everyone's doing this and this and this. But once you abandon all of that, and once you have used the trust model specifically and go, okay, I'm immediately giving you, I trust all of you. I hired all of you. I am giving you everything you need to succeed. Now you have to succeed for me. And now you have to succeed for the company. And I want you to, and I want to help you grow in that direction.
Yeah. And you have to succeed for yourself too.
Absolutely. That's part of the gig. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, I guess it's the long way around of saying it, is that an engaged workforce solves basically all of your business problems. That's my experience with it. Is that something that you've seen out there, or
absolutely?
Okay.
We talk about trust and engagement sort of together and separately too. Mm-hmm. So what is the difference between trust and engagement? Engagement is all those great things you're talking about, people feeling good about their work, seeing their higher purpose, and so on. Mm-hmm. Trust is really a precursor to engagement. So trust is that sort of, as I said, the human behaviors that build the environment in which people can be engaged. And so sometimes companies get stuck at the trust stage, and so they can never get to a fully engaged workforce. And usually there's some sort of critical things that either happen or don't happen, which gets in the way of building trust. And so
what are those things?
So I would say things like leadership. What is the word? So management keeps its promises.
Right.
Management would lay people off as a last resort. Management's actions match its words is actually the number one driver Great Place to Work, people's feelings of Great Place to Work. So when we kind of correlate the statements, all the statements on the trust index, the biggest predictor of whether people think it's a great place to work is whether management's actions match its words. So
that's
I find
interesting.
that really interesting.
Well, it's also a kind of gets a judgment call as for parenting as well. You know what I mean? Like as for the 5-year-old or even a 10-year-old or a teenager, if you don't have consistency as a parent, and are making idle threats that never
amount to anything,
or making idle more about making idle promises that don't amount to anything, that's where you're going to start failing. So it's really more of a sociological thing than a business thing.
Yeah, that's why it takes me back. Everything we do is just about human behavior,
right?
Human relationships. So those kind of would fit into the sort of leadership credibility bucket, if you will. But then what we're also seeing is in the respect bucket, the other direction. So it's not what leaders do, it's what leaders encourage their people to do. So management takes my suggestions, management encourages suggestions and ideas. Management shows appreciation for good work and effort. Management considers values me as like a person, has a sincere interest in me as a person, not just an employee. So those respect pieces are equally important. And what we're finding as we move more into sort of the information era where innovation is key, you start with the competent and credible top-down communication, but this upward flow of communication is really, really prominent as well. And I think we all as leaders probably spend more time talking than we do listening, and we need to shift that, right? And so we, I think it's important for senior leaders especially to appear to be credible and competent and let people know this is where we're going and this is how we're going to get there. But the flip side of that, equally important, is the listening piece, because that's what it makes employees feel like they have agency to make a difference.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to just touch on briefly is something you said earlier about, when you have an engaged workforce, things kind of take care of themselves. So things kind of take care of themselves because you are sharing the power within your organization.
Yeah.
And you're equipping people with the tools they need to lead others. So one of the most common challenges we see, especially in the IT industry, is if someone is a great technical programmer, we promote them to people leader. Mm-hmm. And there was a guy I saw at one of our Great Place to Work conferences. He's the CEO of Kronos, who is now UKG. They've merged, two great workplaces merged.
Right.
And he basically said, what they used to do is they used to say, oh man, you're doing such good work. You're a great technical programmer. I'm going to promote you. Okay, promote me to what? Well, promote you to a leader, but I don't want to be a leader.
Exactly.
Oh, well, if you're a leader, you get to talk to people and lead people, but I don't like people, but we're going to promote you anyway. And so what they do is they force people into these roles, these very important people leadership roles, without equipping them with the skills they need to be great people leaders. Right. And so what they have done, one way they have solved that is they have created career paths that don't involve people leadership. So people that are strong technically that don't like people can still
we've got several of those, and we've done it, we're still, everything is a learning thing. So we're still trying to do trying to kind of keep that going. It's the Peter principle. That we keep on promoting. If someone's good at what they do, we keep on promoting them until they get to a position that they can't do.
Yeah.
And then you fire them because they can't, or in whatever, in the I guess if we're just going with the analogy, that's the way it works. And it's a thing. And I've seen it. As a leader, I have fallen into that bucket before. Like 6 or 7 years ago, where it's like, this guy was incredible at what he did. And he worked his way 6 or 7 years up until we gave him position to manage people. And he self-imploded and ended up leaving. And if I would have just been able to see that he would have been happier in this original role that he had, dealing with the original people that he did and still excelling at what he did, he would have been way happier. And so as leaders, just like you said, we are consistently saying, this guy's really good at what he does. Let's put him in charge of other people. Well, that's not leadership is a skill unto itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that would kind of, that other piece, we talked about sort of the credible leadership, we talked about respect. That's really part of respect, is equipping people with the tools, skills, resources they need to do their job. So don't promote them to the point of ineffectiveness.
Right.
If someone is strong technically and they don't have good people skills to lead, start developing that with them. Anyone can learn these skills if they're inclined to do so. Yeah. But don't just plunk them into a role without equipping them with the skills they need to do the job.
Right.
And then the final piece I would say there, which we haven't really touched on yet, is the fairness dimension. And so here, with our current focus more on inclusion, diversity, but fairness isn't just about that. Fairness is about people in different roles having equal access, not just to pay and promotions and bonus, but to things like face time with leaders. So as a leader, are you giving equal face time to all your employees? Are you saying thank you to different groups of employees, regardless of their role? And so those would be the three key dimensions, I think, that sort of will make or break it. And if you want to sort of create that culture of trust within the organization, you need to be paying attention to all three of those streams at the same time.
Right.
And if you do, it does take on a life of its own, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish that, we're over time again, and I could go on about this and having this discussion forever. Why don't we just end off with this and tell us, there's going to be a ton of people. This is one of the most popular topics that we've had, and there are a lot of people interested in this. How can they get in touch with you? Who can they talk to kind of figure out whether they want, to talk to you about a consultative approach or to bend your ear about challenges they're having? Where can they go and how do they engage you?
Greatplacetowork.ca, and you'll see there's quick links to register if you want to get started with a survey, or contact us if you have a question, or reach out to us, like you say, if you want to just bend our ear with the challenges you're facing. That's probably the best place to get started. And if you are in it for the branding, if you're interested in the branding that we were talking about earlier in the session, if you already think you're a great workplace, put your name in the hat. Let us survey your employees. Investment for small organizations starts at as low as $1,000. So this isn't something that needs to be a huge budget line item. Obviously, the more consulting work we do has a bigger price tag associated with it. But we want to work with organizations of all shapes and sizes, because that helps us build our database, right? We're learning about every company we work with.
Right.
And that's really our intellectual property.
Right. And you're benchmarking them. And that's a very, very important thing for us. It was a real eye opener for us to be on that list. It certainly put us up at the top of people's list when they're looking for a place to work, that the brand actually stands out. And you can see it, and people are drawn to it. But I can say this very, very safely, that it is one of the hardest, let's not say hardest, one of the most challenging roads to walk was going from, not a great place to work to being recognized as a great place to work. And to stay on that list, especially when more and more people want to get on that list, it becomes harder and harder to kind of keep you got to bring your game all the time. And all it's done is it's made us a far better organization. And I want to thank you guys for that, because you've been a real North Star for us to kind of gauge where we are. And the fact that we were so blown away by making it so high up the list this year that, we were having weeks of celebration because of it. You had to refocus people. It was awesome. Anyway, Alison, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. And I wish you the best. And again, greatplacetowork.ca. Jump on there, ask questions, engage someone, get on this list. Thanks, awesome. Everybody.
Thanks, Alison.
Thank you. Great chatting with you.
You too.
Bye-bye.